If you would have told me that annoying orange of all things would end up as a part of one of the most horrifying TikTok trends I've ever seen, I would have never believed you. Yet, that's exactly what happened. From what I remember, I first discovered this sound on TikTok a few months ago. I remember during that night I sank into the depths of this sound. I went through slideshow after slideshow, image after image, backstory after backstory. IDK Sterling, which was funnily enough mentioned in my last TikTok video, has covered a ton of videos with this sound as well, so I just wanted to shout him out again. Today, I'll be diving deep into some of the darkest subjects under this sound and possibly find the original video that started it all. With that being said, I also have my own TikTok page where I'll be posting bonus subjects from videos and short deep dives once or twice a week, including a bonus topic from this video that you can check out right now after you finish this video. I'll also be posting those to Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts if you don't have a TikTok account, so don't worry. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this one. There's absolutely no way that any of you don't know what Annoying Orange is, but I'll still very briefly explain it anyway. Annoying Orange is a YouTube channel that was created on January 11th of 2010, wherein an orange annoys everyone. Very shocking. Anyway, this channel would be extremely popular in the 2010s and would even have a show on Cartoon Network. What a time to be alive, man. But anyway, time would pass, analog horror would become popular, and now we find ourselves in June of 2023. Hope you kept up with that. A YouTuber called Frogman that I cannot find anymore would post an Annoying Orange video that looks like this.
The apple.
What?
The Amazing Grace song used in the original was the first ever recording of the song. It was originally recorded in New York City by the original Sacred Harp Choir by Brunswick Records in 1922. Yeah, I bet you didn't think you'd learn a little music history here, but there you go. Never know what you'll learn on this channel. Anyway, the specific version of that song used here is a bit slowed down and was originally used in the infamous Mandela Catalog series in, I believe, volume 333. On October 2nd, 2023, the official Annoying Orange account will post their own version of the meme on YouTube Shorts that got 3.1 million views as of today.
Hey, the apple.
What?
Apple. Hey, guess what?
What?
The fog is coming.
What? Ah! What the?
This also makes the original canon, which is pretty funny. The original Annoying Orange video posted on YouTube would be posted on TikTok in August of 2023 and would go viral, boasting over 3 million views. Of course, this caused the massive TikTok trend I spoke about in the intro. Now I can finally dive into some of the TikToks with this sound that I personally found the most disturbing, dark, or honestly just creepy. Phase 1. First section is going to be comprised of fictional stuff, and each subsequent section will become darker until it's like some really heavy material, letting you know before we continue. That being said, let's get into our first subject, TikTok 1. This first TikTok posted by Smart Odie shows an image of John from the Garfield series saying, "Hey Lyman," then showing an image of Lyman replying, "What?" before we see 3 creepy images of Lyman. In order to explain these images, we have to go back to the Flash game era. Some of you may remember a game called Garfield's Scary Scavenger Hunt. This game involves you traversing around a haunted house as Garfield while you look for an assortment of dessert pastries. Personally, I really enjoyed this game, but more than that, I stumbled upon something pretty creepy. Now look, I may be a silly guy, but I think that might be Lyman. Lyman, what are you doing down here, man? Why does John have you down here, Lyman? What's going on? You hear that? Something happened in the kitchen. I'm so hungry. You have any muffins? I'm gonna guess there's some free muffins in the kitchen now. So we're gonna go back and see if we can get you a muffin. You definitely need it. I don't know why they have you chained up in the basement. I mean, Lyman, what did you do? What did Lyman do to deserve this? Did John do this to him? John, why'd you do this to Lyman? I mean, I thought he was your friend. You got him chained up in the basement and such? That's not all either. Later in the game, I also found this. Wait. That Lyman's severed head just casually sitting right there? I thought this was supposed to be in the second game. I guess it's in the first one. Okay. That's pretty creepy that they just had that there, but okay. It's kind of crazy that that was in a kid's game when you think about it. The other image will be found in the second installment of the game series. If you walk into the kitchen and click the oven, you'll see an image of Lyman's head inside of it. While these images are unnerving, the reason that John specifically was used in this slideshow is because of a specific theory. I'm going to read this theory word for word from a Tumblr account called Garfield Explained. John not only killed Lyman, he did something much worse. Lyman's last known appearance in the comic strip was in 1983, and fans have been wondering what had happened to him since. Well, after extensive research, I have recently discovered that Lyman can be found in the Garfield.com flash game Garfield's Scary Scavenger Hunt, chained to the wall in the basement of the haunted house. As Nuzjock World had already kindly iterated in a reblog to this post, when a fan asked about Lyman's whereabouts, Jim Davis had previously replied, "Don't look in John's basement." With these two key pieces of information, we can now shine some much needed light on the situation. The first pivotal piece of the puzzle is that the haunted house is then most likely owned by none other than John Arbuckle himself. This also means that John has been pulling the strings of this game all along. The true plot of the Scary Scavenger Hunt is that John hides donuts and other sweet treats around a terrifying house that he owns and gets Garfield to look for it to emotionally scar and abuse him. But that's besides the point. The real thing to focus on is the fact that Lyman is chained in the basement. My theory is that John bought the house in secret shortly before kidnapping Lyman and holding him in that basement so he can torture Lyman whenever his sadistic tendencies grow too strong. This means he has been in his basement for at least 30 years. However, unfortunately, this isn't the end of the story for Lyman. There was a sequel. In Scary Scavenger Hunt 2, Garfield finds himself back in the same house with more goodies. However, Lyman is no longer in the basement, and in his place is a coffin. It holds a vampire, but the coffin is heavy foreshadowing of Lyman's true fate. Later in the game, you find his decapitated head in the oven. You can also find Liz Wilson's decaying head propped up in the master bedroom like a trophy, as well as Orson Pig's head from US Acres also in the fridge. This is why I theorize that this game actually takes place in the future when John finally snaps and goes on a mass killing spree. This can be prevented. Hopefully, it's not too late for him. Stop John Arbuckle and free Lyman before it's too late. Personally, I have a slightly different theory. If you go upstairs to the bedroom in the first game, you'll see that Lyman is in the shower perfectly fine. Because of this, I feel like there's some type of mad scientist character that owns this haunted house. Someone that's able to clone these characters and torture them or run diabolical tests on them. This is even further exemplified when you play the second game and see a dog that looks very similar to Frankenstein's monster. I could be wrong, but I thought I'd put that out there. TikTok 2 is from Legend671 and starts off with an image of Phineas from the cartoon Phineas and Ferb saying, "Hey Ferb," with Ferb saying, "What?" And finally an image of a monstrous, grotesque version of Phineas after some sort of test went wrong. But okay, where did this come from and what's the entire story behind this? Well, for that we must go back 5 years to the infamous subreddit r/I'mSorryJohn. If you don't know about this subreddit, it honestly deserves its own video, but it originates because of these images where we can see John traversing a strange Garfield pattern version of his house before he encounters a warped version of Garfield that apologizes because he ate the entire house out of hunger. It kinda just looks like Garfield's domain expansion though, but I digress. A user on the subreddit named Zoidberg would post the same image we've already looked at with the caption, "I'm sorry, Phineas." This wouldn't be all though. As time would go on, this same artist would continue the story. In the next entry, Phineas and Ferb's sister Candace is seen entering the room. Candace? Something went wrong. You have to burn it down, Candace. Burn it all down. In the next section, we see Candace running to tell their mom what happened, as she always does when Phineas and Ferb make their crazy inventions. As always, things return to normal, and she looks like she's lying. However, unfortunately, this was only in Candace's head. She's living an alternate reality in her mind as she's absorbed into whatever Phineas has become. In the next entry, we see that Phineas has spread all over the city. Doofenshmirtz, the main antagonist of the franchise, and Perry the Platypus, who commonly foils his plans, are sitting on top of Doofenshmirtz's building. Doofenshmirtz tells Perry that he may have a way to stop what's happening. As they fly through the cityscape in his flying car, Doofenshmirtz explains that he detected an anomaly in the loops that Phineas was causing, and that he had an invention that could fix it. As he locks Perry inside, we're left with a to be continued message. In the next part, Doofenshmirtz explains to Perry that he cloned him in order for him to escape the loop, but for some reason the clone just won't do anything. That's weird. Because of this, Doofenshmirtz is basically forcing the clone out of this reality loop by himself. In the final part, we see Doofenshmirtz cutting down the machine that will fix this reality loop before Perry's clone fights back, causing the car to go out of control and crash. As he lays there, Doofenshmirtz is confused as to why Perry would so desperately try to stop him before he realizes that Perry is the cause of it all. We finally get to see the original experiment Phineas and Ferb did, where they combined Phineas' DNA with that of Perry's. Perry was a monster in this universe instead of a regular platypus, some type of reality warping being that keeps this time loop in check. This Reddit user theorizes that the time loops are likely based off of the fact that the episodes of the show always restart the same timeline every episode, and that Perry is the one observing that. Honestly, there was much more to that than I expected, but it was amazing nonetheless. TikTok 3. This one actually has spoilers for the anime/manga Hunter x Hunter, so if you haven't read through chapter 198 of the manga or watched through episode 84 of Hunter x Hunter 2011, skip to the timestamp on screen unless you, I guess, don't care. Alright, you ready? Let's go. This TikTok from Rise MLB starts off with a character named Neferpito saying, "Hey Pockle," with Pockle responding, "What?" in 3 unnerving images. So what exactly happened here? In the fictional country NGL, there's a bit of a problem. An ant problem. And unfortunately, ants in the Hunter x Hunter universe aren't the same little guys that might try to take a piece of your sandwich. No. Ants in Hunter x Hunter look more like this. Very powerful bug-like creatures that unfortunately will wipe out a village of humans in minutes, not even thinking anything of it. The higher level of these beings are completely capable of the same complex thought as humans too, they just simply don't care. Pockle was a hunter, someone who endured an extremely difficult exam in order to be licensed to go anywhere or do anything in the world. These people train or explore the world and its mysteries as they please, but unfortunately that comes with its fair share of dangers. Pockle, along with his team, was attempting to look into the chimera ant infestation in this country. Eventually, he decides to turn back as it's too dangerous, telling his team that they need to form an official extermination team. But it's already too late. After getting rid of the first threat, a much stronger creature named Pike arrives, and this time even Pockle's strongest attack does nothing. Despite this, he continues to fight, but is unfortunately paralyzed and poisoned by an attack from Zazan, another powerful chimera ant. If this was it though, this wouldn't be in this video. In chapter 195 of the series, Ramot, another ant, exhibits a strange new power. This power is Nen, a power structure that uses aura or life energy. Holt realizes that they need to learn more about this power, and that Pockle is a Nen user, so they need to get information out of him. After looking around for him in a room with the bones of many formerly captured humans, it seems like he's already been eaten. However, Pockle is actually hiding under the bones, hoping that he can escape. Pito, boasting a particularly menacing aura, is able to sense Pockle under the bones. How terrifying it must feel to be found and know that there's nothing you can do. As chapter 198 begins, we see Pockle's brain being manipulated by Pito, forcing him to explain how the power of Nen works. Pockle was basically reduced to the state of a doll, his entire mind being controlled by another being before being thrown away and slaughtered to be eaten. To me, this is one of the most unnerving anime moments, something I was happy I could talk about on this channel. But with that being said... Section 2. To avoid making this into a pseudo iceberg video, I'm going to limit these next 2 sections to 2 subjects. TikTok 1. This TikTok from uni_verso89 starts off with an image of the medication Radithor with the caption, "Hey Eben," with an image of a man named Eben Byers responding, "What?" And then a final censored image that looks pretty disturbing. Ebenezer Eben McBurney Byers was, according to Wikipedia, an American socialite, sportsman, and industrialist. He also accomplished winning the 1905 U.S. Amateurs Golf Tournament, a tournament held every year in August over the course of a week. He would also graduate from Yale and was a chairman of his father's iron company. In 1927, Eben would be laying in a train sleeping berth when he would fall off one of the beds and injure his arm. A doctor would prescribe him Radithor, a medication manufactured by a Harvard dropout named William J.A. Bailey, who liked to lie about being a doctor of medicine in order to sell his medication. He also gave physicians a part of the profits and would make millions of dollars doing this. There was only one major problem. Radithor was made by dissolving radium in water. I don't know if you know this, but radium is radioactive. It's literally the opposite of medicine, actually. Unfortunately, Eben was falsely led to believe that this would be helpful for his injury pain and would take 1,400 doses over the next 3 years. According to Wikipedia, he lost weight and had headaches, and his teeth began to fall out. A year later, the FDA would ask for a statement on the medication, wherein his lawyer would relay a statement from Eben, who was stuck at home due to having the majority of his jaw removed. That is what the aforementioned censored pictures in the TikTok are of. It's also said that holes were quite literally forming in his skull as a result of this medication. On March 31st, 1932, he would finally pass away from cancers caused by his many doses of Radithor. Due to how many doses he took, the radiation basically accumulated in his bones. Interestingly enough, his coffin is also lined with lead. TikTok 2. Posted by DaBaby AEP, it shows German football player Norbert Siegmund saying, "Hey Edward," then an image of Ewald Linen saying "what," before showing an image that I'll definitely have to censor. So how exactly did Ewald Linen incur one of the worst injuries in football history? On August 14, 1981, in a normal game like any other against Werder Bremen, things are generally going normally. 20 minutes into the first half, Linen makes a move towards Werder's goal, but it's intercepted as Norbert Siegmund challenges him. Normally this wouldn't be a big deal, as this is an extremely common defensive move in this sport. However, the studs on the bottom of the player's cleats were metal, so combined with the speed and force that Norbert slid and the angle with which he did it, Linen's thigh would be completely split open, leaving a 10-inch or 25-centimeter gash. Linen would writhe on the ground in pain and would eventually attempt to get up, failing on the first try. When he finally did, he looked down and saw the massive wound, which caused him to at first scream and then get angry. He began to angrily confront Otto Rehhagel, the coach of Werder, as he believed the coach had told Norbert to do that challenge on purpose. After being taken away on a stretcher, Linen would receive 23 stitches and recover in less than a month's time. Linen would later take both Norbert and Otto to court over this, but would lose. The criticism both Norbert and Otto faced over this scene would have some pretty serious consequences, with Otto having to wear a bulletproof vest in another game after the incident, and Norbert picking up the name Schlitzer, or the Slicer. He would eventually become Buddhist because of this. German news publication Bild would later interview him in April of 2007, and he would confirm that Otto was wearing the vest at the time due to threats on his life, and that he was annoyed about the situation because of the fact that nobody cared about him and what he was going through. He also said that Otto did in fact tell him to play aggressively due to Linen's team playing aggressively, but that he didn't mean to injure him. He would also go on a self-discovery journey for a decade where he would travel to many countries and would end up being taught by Osho, a very famous Indian philosopher. This journey would eventually cause him to become Buddhist, as mentioned earlier. Okay, section 3. This is by far the darkest section of this video. I'm telling you now, I'm gonna get into some super heavy stuff, so if you can't handle it, it's okay if you leave. Alright, that being said, TikTok 1. This TikTok by .Q180 starts off with an image of Christian Neething Barnard saying, "Hey dog," before we see an image of Vladimir Demikov with a German Shepherd dog with the usual "what" caption, and then this image. This is an image of one of Demikov's many medical science experiments. Vladimir Demikov was a scientist who resided in Soviet Russia that is considered a pioneer of organ transplantation. He would commonly perform experiments on animals, with him successfully transplanting hearts and lungs between them. In 1953, one of the heart transplants he performed on a dog would allow the dog to live for 7 more years after the operation, which is absolutely insane to me. He even performed the first coronary artery bypass operation. This guy obviously contributed a lot to medicine. I think we can agree on that. However, in pursuit of progress, he would perform an experiment that was highly considered unethical. This was an experiment wherein he would connect a dog's head onto another dog via vascular connections to the heart of the host dog. He faced a lot of criticism for these experiments, but he continued to do them for years, with the other head surviving over a month during an experiment in 1968. Honestly, I'm not fully sure why Christian Neething Barnard was even used in this slideshow. As far as I can tell, his only association to Demikov is that he credits him as the father of heart and lung transplantation. Bonus fact, Barnard actually performed the first successful human-to-human heart transplant, so that's pretty insane. TikTok 2. This TikTok, posted by Paranormal Lover 1, starts off with a Finnish soldier saying "hey," Soviet soldiers saying "what," and an image that I definitely have to censor. In 1941, Finland would side with Germany against the Soviet Union and start what was known as the Continuation War. This was because it was a sequel to the Winter War between Finland and the Soviet Union that lasted from 1939 to 1940. During this war, specifically on December 15, 1942, Finnish soldiers would stumble upon a very disturbing sight. Near Lake Segozero in Russia, they stumbled upon, quote, an enemy recon patrol that was cut out of food supplies had butchered a few members of their own patrol group and had eaten most of them. I don't think much else needs to be said after that, honestly. The image shown prior was a display of some of the skin left over from this horrific event, by the way. TikTok 3. Okay, I said I was going to limit this section to 2 subjects as well, but honestly, I felt the need to add one more, alright, sorry. This TikTok by Hemelik1 starts off with an image of Faustino Rayo saying, "Hey Gabriel," with Gabriel Garcia Moreno responding "Que," and then an image of a drawing depicting Moreno's final moments. Gabriel Garcia Moreno was the president of Ecuador from August 1869 to August 1875. He was a bit of a controversial ruler at the time for a few reasons. For one, he allowed extremely poor treatment of indigenous workers, for example, making them build roads with insufficient tools. For two, he was an extremely conservative ruler and not a very big fan of any liberal disapproval. So much so that he had a secret police force organized to silence his critics. Generally, because of these actions, he was considered more so a dictator, and certain people were becoming angrier and angrier as he was elected to the presidency for the 3rd time in 1875. During this time, a pope would warn Moreno by saying, quote, "You have been warned that your death was decreed by the Freemasons, but you have not been told when. I have just heard that the assassins are going to try and carry out their plot at once. For God's sake, take your measures accordingly." In response, Moreno would reply that he'd basically heard it all before, and that the only thing he was worried about was making sure he was prepared to appear before God. The next day, he would be assassinated on the steps of the National Palace by Faustino Rayo and 3 other dissenters, receiving several machete blows as the others fired their revolvers at him. This would lead to his demise shortly before he could be formally inaugurated yet again.